Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shabrakatah. To all the Akim in the four corners. Today I want to go over reversing the curses. Okay, I'm gonna do a PowerPoint presentation to kind of give you some ammo and give you some things to look at. Just a couple of the curses, man. Like I said in a previous video, the curses are so detrimental to our community that without coming back to the Most High, you're gonna be destroyed forever. Like that was the point. Okay. The point was there ain't no way around it. You're gonna do what the Most High said, or you're just gonna be destroyed through these curses, man. All right. So let's get right into it. What you would need for this lesson is your KJV, a Bible, your KJV, Apocrypha, possibly a dictionary, and maybe an internet connection. You can check all the sources. I posted the sources in red on this presentation. You know, it's going to be helpful to watch and follow along with this one as well, since I did a PowerPoint. But if you're just listening, you should be able to follow along pretty well. So the first part of this presentation that I wanted to go through was the economic curses. I'm gonna keep this version short because maybe I'll teach a longer version of the same lesson later. Okay, but the economic curses are, like I said, detrimental to us. Let's look at Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right. Now, the Lord was not playing, because these curses were so crazy and so heavy that they affected us for generations. You know, I used to look at some of these as if, well, let's say it like this. Some scholars and some, you know, apologists who are opponents to the Israelites would like you to believe that these curses had an expiration date. They would like you to believe that. They would like you to believe that these curses only affected people within the Bible, and then once it was recorded in the Bible, that was it. That's, you know, it can't still be happening. But that don't make sense, and that's not the way that the scripture is written. That's not the way that the book of Deuteronomy is written. Matter of fact, let's look at verse 46 in Deuteronomy 28. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. You see that? So it's going to be a forever type thing. Like until you come back to the Lord, this is how it's going to be. All right. So let's look at verse 17. This is kind of what I want to focus on for a lot of this presentation is curse shall be thy basket and thy store. Now, what does that mean? Now, your basket is dealing with where you gather and store what you've made. Your store is your reserves. So think about it as if you harvesting. Curse shall be your basket is when you go out into the field of harvest, what all you bring back to your house is in your basket. But once you get it back to your house, whatever you have left over after that first night, the things that you store and come back to next week or come back to next month, that's your store. Okay. Now, in today's time, a basket in the store will be dealing with your income. Maybe your store will be your savings. You know what I'm saying? And so let's look at how crafty Esau was. Man. They came out with this video called the secret of selling the Negro. Okay. Now look who it was published by Johnson Publishing Company. And you could probably look this up later, but Google Johnson Publishing, and you're going to realize that they still around. You're going to realize that not only are they still around, but they one of the major publishing companies out there. Okay. But exploitation of the black dollar by the American people. So this right here is teaching white people who wasn't letting you live in their neighborhoods and who also were not allowing you to enjoy certain freedoms that, according to the Constitution, they were able to enjoy. Now, this right here is teaching them how to exploit you and how to capitalize on the market potential that you could have. Now, what does all this mean? Open up a store in a neighborhood, right? It's 100 kids there. 25 of them are white, 25 of them are black, 25 of them are Asian, 25 of them are Indian, okay? East Indian or something like that. So with out of that 100 people, if I only sell to my own white people, that's only 25% of the population. You know, my market potential is only at a maximum, it's only 25% of the available population. But if I raise it and say, let's let these black people come into our store and buy stuff, you just raised your market potential in that market by, you just raised it another 25 people. So now instead of only 25 people you can sell to, now you can sell to 50. This is what this whole thing was about. All right. You really need to go back and watch it, but just some of the keynotes from the film. Okay. Segregation not only divided communities, but limited market size. So this is one of the main things that they learned. Segregation divided communities, and they didn't care about that, but it limited market size. So now it's getting into our pockets. So we got to find a way to capitalize on these black people with their money that they have. They have money to spend. Let's find a way to make money off of them. Okay. Post World War II, blacks begin to make up to 4 times as much as they did prior to the war. So, and why did this happen? Because during World War II, a lot of men went off to fight in World War II and died in the war, right? So it changed the demographic of the market. And so when you change the demographic of the market, now your marketing schemes and the people, your target audience now has to change as well to suit the new environment. So after World War II, black people started to get more jobs, and then of course you had the Industrial Revolution. And so a lot of black people moved into major cities like Chicago, New York, the Great Migration into California. And so when all of this stuff happened, you got big cities, huge cities, metropolitan cities with industrial plants, Detroit, things like that. And now a bunch of black people can live there. So number one, they built the projects so that you could live there. And then number two, they built or they gave you those manufacturing jobs. Okay. So you were making 4 times more than what you used to before being a sharecropper or just working as help, you know what I'm saying, for the common white folks. So, and this partly, this was a good thing for us because during this time, we used this to establish our own communities, right? To a certain degree. But anyway, so we made 4 times more. And so white people sat back and said, wow, they got a lot of money now. We got to find a way to capitalize on this and get our money back from them. Okay. Companies needed a way to tap into the black dollar. They recognized that without the black dollar, they would be leaving a lot of money on the table. Okay. So 1906, right? And now we're moving back in time a little bit, right? Because we were just talking about after the World War. But let's go back in time a little bit. 1906, Black Atlanta. There were black economies, man. Fully functional black economies, complete with banks, dentists, just all kinds of things, man. We had any profession and every profession represented in our own community. We didn't have to go outside of our community for nothing. And in a lot of cases, we weren't able to, but we didn't have to. Now we in a sense where we have to go outside our community to go to a bank. We have to go outside our community to go to a grocery store. But back then it wasn't so. Okay. And you can see how all of these ended. If you just look at the screen here, you can see how each one of these black economies ended. So how do we reverse this curse? How do we reverse this curse of white people exploiting our money so that they can boost their own economies? And meanwhile, coming to destroy our economy so that we can only shop at their stores, and we can only go to their banks. How do we reverse that and come back to where we need to be? Well, first we need to be keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, because that's the reason we're in this situation now. But Romans 12:10 says, be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love, in honor, preferring one another. So we're supposed to prefer one another, man. If we start to prefer one another again, none of this will be the case. Because, hey, I know it costs $3 more, you know what I'm saying, for me to go, or on average, it's going to cost me about $20 more to go to this black grocery store instead of going to Buy Low like I usually do, or, you know, Kroger like I usually do. But you know what? I'm going to do that because I got to prefer my people. I got to put my people above. Okay? And so that's the reason that Romans 12:10 is so important. Because when you prefer your people, you build your economy. And when you build your economy, you no longer need to go to your enemy. And Sirach 12:10, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. And I don't even need to explain that one. Now, some more economic curses. Haggai 1:6. You have sown much and bring in little. See, this is kind of backing up. Curse will be your basket, right? You eat, but you have not enough. You drink, but you are not filled with drink. You clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put into a bag of holes. This right here is a compound curse too, because look, you getting paid. Your job, technically, you make enough money, technically, to pay your bills. But now, Congress is passing the mandatory healthcare bill where you got to have healthcare. So now you got to pay for that damn high ass expensive health coverage that they got provided through your job. You know what I'm saying? In order to have health coverage. So that's money that's coming out your pocket immediately. You got to pay property taxes. You got to pay sales tax when you buy a car. Then you got to pay property tax after you have the car. Then you got to pay for the state inspection to keep the car. Then you got to pay the tax and the registration in order to drive the car. So they getting money on every side, man. You have a bag of holes in it, you know? And if you barely make enough to where you can make a living, all this nickel and diamond is killing you. It's killing you. Not to mention, you get sick, you go to the hospital, you go to the emergency room, they charge you damn $5,000, man, to be there for 45 minutes. So they nickel and diamond you, they killing you. Not to mention, there's clauses in your medical insurance that says if you go to the emergency room and it's not an emergency, they're not covering it. So I'm showing you how that bag with holes in it works. Not to mention, you get income tax. As soon as you get paid, the money leaves your bank immediately. Okay. The government owes you a damn stimulus check, which who cares about the stimulus check? But they owe you that because they said they was going to give it to people, and they don't cut the check. But when it's time for you to pay taxes or it's time for you to pay something, you better have that jump the day of or the day before. You see how that works? Okay. So these are clearly your enemies, man. And he that earneth wages put it in a bag of holes. All right, Deuteronomy 28:43. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. When the last time an Asian guy came to a black-owned bank to get a loan? When the last time a white guy came to a Hispanic-owned bank to get a loan? If it does happen, it's definitely the exception to the rule, because that's not the way it generally works. We go to their banks. We get loans from their banks. We default on our loans. Our loans go into collections, and they get rich, man. They pile on interest, pile on interest, pile on interest, and once they maximize the amount of interest they can pile on, then they pass it over to collections. And then collections calls you and says you owe $10 million when they bought that debt for $2,000 or whatever. You know, I'm being facetious, but You get the point, man. They're snakes. These economic curses are things you're not going to be able to overcome without the Lord's help. Now, look at this slide. Percentage change in median net worth of households. So your median net worth is the average net worth of your household, meaning how much does your household, how much are you worth? If I add your job and your ribs job together, and then I subtract all of your bills and all of your expenses throughout the year, what is your net worth? Okay. And how has that changed between 2005 and 2009? Now, we already know that whites' net worth started way higher than Hispanics and Blacks. But look at the change between 2005 and 2009. Okay. The change is crazy. Whites' net worth went down 16%. Hispanics and Blacks over 50%. How is that possible? Because guess what? You're under these curses, man. You're under these curses. All the stuff is here. All the numbers are here. You can go to www.ssa.gov and you can see this. I put the link at the bottom, but these are official documents. These are not, you know what I'm saying, YouTube or Wikipedia snapshots. So look at this. Net worth of white people. Okay. The average value, you know, average value is the mean. So the average value is about $273,000. Household wealth. Okay. $273,000. When the last time you had $273,000? That's the average wealth for a white household. Okay. Without, and not even counting their housing equity. Okay. We're talking about $200,000 of equity, man. Financial assets. They got $80,000 of financial assets. Stocks, 24,000. This is the average of respondents, of people that they, you know, replied to the survey. But a lot of the times this research is well, you know, studied. Bonds, 4,000. And total wealth, hey, they over $500,000 of total wealth, man. Now, if we look at the same line on Black and Hispanic people, less than $100,000 of net worth. And then if we come down to total wealth, white people over $500,000, Hispanic, Black people are half of that, and Hispanic people are less than that. They're less than $200,000 of net worth or of total wealth. That's including housing equity. Your house could be $100,000 by itself. So if you own a house, that's the majority of your wealth, right? And so these numbers don't lie, man. These numbers don't lie. Reversing this curse. Proverbs 3:9. Honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of all thy increase. Guess what? A lot of us, man, we get substance, we get a paycheck, we run to go get some Jordans. We run to go get a damn gold grill to put in our mouth. We spend money on stuff that does not appreciate with value. White people buying stuff that appreciates with value. They buy a house, and not only do they buy a house, they keep the property value up of the house. You know what I'm saying? They do certain things in their neighborhood to increase their property value. Neighborhood watch. They build banks and Whole Foods and Chick-fil-A's and stuff in their neighborhoods. In your neighborhood, you got a pawn shop. You got a whole bunch of stuff that's going to help destroy you. Okay? So we got to honor the Lord with our substance, man. Whenever we get a chance to buy something, we got to move smart and we got to think about appreciating value. Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. You see what I'm saying? A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. Look, that's something we should be looking forward to. Having something to hand down to our children. You know, you should be working on your credit. You don't never hear Jake talking about working on their credit. That should be something we should be dealing with, because we under these curses, we need good credit more than anybody else. All right. So that we can leave something to our children's children. Now, another problem we have is progressive debt in the Israelite community. Exodus 22 and 25, if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor, thou shalt not be to him a usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. So, hey, anybody who is in your community, anybody who is in amongst your people, you're not supposed to put usury on them. You're not supposed to put interest all over them. Hey, man, I'm going to give you this $20, but when you give it back, I need 30. What? Nah, man, don't do that. Most High said don't do that. Deuteronomy 23 and 19, thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. So look, you can't lend nothing on usury. Because why? Because guess what? If they didn't have the money at the beginning, they ain't gonna have it when it's time to pay you back. So now you're not helping them. You're helping yourself. That's why usury is against the scriptures. You can't do that to your own people. Now, payday loans, pawn shops, and check cashing outlets. This is another thing people ain't paying attention to. And we know it, but we don't know why. This is on the Federal Reserve website, www.federalreserve.gov. Okay, notice all of my sources are from government sources and reputable locations. All right. But this says determinants of the locations of payday lenders. So how do they determine where the payday lenders and the pawn shops and the check cashing places get put? Let's read this. A large and growing number of low to moderate income U.S. households rely upon alternative financial service providers, AFSPs. Okay. So low to moderate income households rely on these places, payday lenders, pawn shops, and check cashing places for a variety of credit products and transaction services. Second sentence, the rapid growth of this segment of the financial services industry over the past decade has been quite controversial. One aspect of the controversy involves the location decisions of AFSPs. This study examines the determinants of the locations of three types of AFSPs. Next sentence, using county level data for the entire country, I find that the number of AFSPs outlets per capita is significantly related to demographic characteristics. And look at what it says in parentheses. Example, racial, ethnic composition, age, and education level. So guess what? By definition, the blacker your community, the more urban your community, the more payday lenders, pawn shops, and check cashing places that are going to be there. And guess what? Also, the blacker your community, generally speaking, the lower your education level. So understand what's going on. Market research was done. They know that you need it more, but they also know that it hurts you more. But they're not going to set that check cashing place up in a rich neighborhood because those people have enough money to pay for expenses out of their own pocket. They don't need to go to a check cashing place. So these financial institutions, these AFSPs, as they call them, were created just for you and put in your neighborhood. Okay. Another study from the same website. All right. Berkey and Simpkins from 2004 finds that zip code tabulation area, right? ZCTAs with higher concentrations of Blacks, younger populations, lower median incomes, and lower education levels are associated with a higher number of payday lenders and lower number of banks. So this ain't no one or two occurrences type of thing. This is the way it's done. This is the way it's done. You got to be smart, man. You got to choose wisely, as J. Cole said. You know, you see these places, it's in the hood. And these people, none of these people don't need to be going into these places, but we don't understand that because number one, we destroy for a lack of knowledge. And number two, we got a bag with holes in it. So what happens is when you have a bag with holes in it, you're forced to pay for stuff that you can't pay for. You got to find a way to get your check before time so that you can pay your light bill, so your lights don't get cut off. But then in getting that check before time, they're going to tax you. They're going to charge you $25 to cash a $200 check, man. They wild. They wild, man. Housing disparity. You know, these are another one of the curses that we go through. Deuteronomy 28 and 30, second half of that verse. Thou shalt build a house and thou shalt not dwell therein. Now let's look at this. Housing discrimination contributed largely to the wealth gap. Remember, we was talking about how white people have more than $500,000 in wealth, and black people don't even have really $200,000 in wealth. You know what I'm saying? Housing discrimination contributed largely to that. And you can look at this graph here and see, you know what I'm saying? White people on average just make, or they have a lot more wealth. You know what I'm saying? On average. The median is even higher. The median for black people, I mean, we're at $11,000 of wealth. They almost at 100,000 for the, and median means the middle of the pack. So, you know, middle class white people have almost $100,000 of wealth. Middle class black people have about $11,000 of wealth. You see that? And then when you go into the averages, it's sick, man. It's sick. All right. Let's keep going. So this guy right here, Richard Rothstein, right? He sounds like Amalek. He sounds like Amalek, but he was telling the truth in this book. It's called The Color of Law. In this book, he breaks down how when they discriminated against you buying houses, it changed the amount of wealth that you could accumulate. So let me show you what that looks like. They gave white people loans easily with little to no resistance in the mortgage process. Small, little to nothing on the interest rates. And the government appropriated those funds for white people to get mortgages because they were building their housing market during this time. And so they gave white people houses, basically. And then not only did they give them houses, but they created suburbs and places like Levittown in Pennsylvania, which is still a place today. White people bought houses there for like $50,000. Brand new house in the suburbs. And then those people over time was able to hand that house down to their children, and the property value tripled, quadrupled, and in some cases 10 times. They received tenfold on their property value. So now a house that they bought for $50,000 is now worth $500,000 in some cases. Look at your wealth increase just because the government was on your side, allowed you to buy a house in a certain place, and they gave you the money basically to buy it, and they approved your loan with little to no resistance. And your property value went that far over the period of 50 to 60 years. Okay? That was what happened with white people. So their wealth increased exponentially. Black people weren't able to buy houses in those same neighborhoods. Instead, we had to buy houses in historically Black neighborhoods. That's why a lot of our grandmas live in those historically Black neighborhoods. My grandma lives in a Black neighborhood, and she bought that house back in the 70s. And my other grandma bought that house back in the 70s or the 60s. Black people bought houses in their own neighborhoods, didn't get the same government support, didn't get the same interest rates, and their property value damn sure didn't go up. That's why by the time you hit the 80s and the 90s, All those black neighborhoods that our grandparents bought was the damn hood. You was fighting your way in and fighting your way out, man. Your property value did not go up. Your wealth did not go up. Instead, you stayed in your lower state, just as the Lord said would happen. So we got to be mindful and cognizant of these curses that the Lord is bringing upon us. And just remember that, you know, we got to prefer one another, man, and be kindly affectionate towards one another and never trust our enemy. And just, hey, come back to these law, statutes, and commandments, man, to the best of your ability. I'll continue to do lessons like this. I'm going to do another one shortly. But I just wanted to hit y'all with that one real quick. I appreciate you for listening. Until next time, shalom.